You won't believe what happened when our HOA president dropped the bomb that we couldn't grill outside anymore. Yeah, just like that. No more barbecues in our own backyard. At first, we thought it was just another boring rule, but it quickly turned into a full-on neighborhood drama. The tension was real, and everyone was frustrated because summer grilling is kind of a big deal around here. We wanted to bring the community together, share some good food, and just enjoy the sunshine. But instead, we were faced with a strict no grilling policy that felt unfair and honestly a little ridiculous. So, instead of giving up, we decided to do something completely unexpected. We flipped the script and planned a barbecue, just not where you'd think. Instead of grilling in the neighborhood, we took the party to the sheriff's office. Yep, you heard that right. It was our way of making a statement, bringing people together in a new way, and maybe even smoothing things over with some of the folks in charge. But here's the twist. How did the sheriff's office react? And what did the HOA presidents say when they found out? Trust me, this story gets wild, and you're going to want to stick around for what happened next. So here's the backstory. Our neighborhood has always been tight-knit, with block parties and barbecues being the heart of summer fun. Everyone knows each other, and grilling out is like a little tradition that brings us all together. But recently, the HOA president started cracking down on some of the outdoor activities, especially grilling. They said it was about safety and neighborhood rules, but a lot of us thought it was more about control. No one really knew why the sudden change, and it felt like the president wasn't open to hearing any concerns. That's when things got interesting. Instead of just complaining, a few neighbors and I brainstormed a way to keep the spirit alive. We thought, what if we took the barbecue outside the neighborhood? The sheriff's office was close by, and we figured, why not turn this into a positive event? We reached out, and surprisingly, they were open to the idea. The plan was to host a community barbecue for the deputies, a way to say thanks, and maybe show that we're all about community, no matter the rules. But word about the barbecue spread fast. Rumors started flying, and not everyone was happy. Some neighbors worried about crossing the HOA, while others questioned if involving the sheriff's office would make things better or worse. The tension was building, and as the day of the barbecue got closer, no one knew exactly what to expect. Would the HOA president show up? Would this bring peace or spark more conflict? Stay tuned, because what happened next changes everything. As the barbecue day approached, the neighborhood buzzed with a mix of excitement and unease. Some people were thrilled, finally, a chance to come together despite the HOA rules. Others were worried about stirring up trouble or making things worse with the president. A few neighbors even questioned whether inviting the sheriff's office was the right move. Are we poking the bear too much? They wondered. The division was real, and you could feel it in every conversation. Meanwhile, the HOA president was tight-lipped. Rumors swirled that they were unhappy about the whole plan, but no official word came out. A few neighbors claimed to have overheard heated discussions during board meetings, but no one was sure what the outcome would be. Some thought the president might show up to shut things down, while others hoped this barbecue would open a new chapter for the community. On the sheriff's side, the officers were curious but supportive. They saw this as a chance to connect with residents beyond the usual calls and complaints. Yet, even they weren't sure what to expect. Would this barbecue really help build bridges, or would it accidentally deepen the divide? And with the HOA president's rules looming over everything, tension was thicker than the smell of grilling meat in the air. As neighbors prepared food and shared stories, the question hanging over everyone's heads was clear. Would this barbecue become a moment of unity or the spark of something much bigger? The answer was still out there, waiting to unfold. The day of the barbecue finally arrived, and the energy was electric. Neighbors showed up carrying dishes, folding chairs, and coolers, but underneath the smiles, there was a nervous edge. Everyone knew this wasn't just a regular cookout. It felt like a test, like the whole neighborhood was holding its breath. The sheriff's deputies arrived with a mix of curiosity and caution, shaking hands, exchanging greetings, trying to break the ice. The smell of sizzling burgers and smoky charcoal filled the air, but the tension was hard to ignore. The day of the barbecue finally arrived, and the energy was electric. Neighbors showed up carrying dishes, folding chairs, and coolers, but underneath the smiles, there was a nervous edge. Everyone knew this wasn't just a regular cookout. It felt like a test, like the whole neighborhood was holding its breath. The sheriff's deputies arrived with a mix of curiosity and caution, shaking hands, exchanging greetings, trying to break the ice. The smell of sizzling burgers and smoky charcoal filled the air, but the tension was hard to ignore. Meanwhile, whispers about the HOA president's reaction were growing louder. Some said the president had sent a warning, threatening fines or penalties if the barbecue didn't end on time. Others claimed the president was planning to show up unannounced. No one knew for sure, but the possibility hung over the gathering like a dark cloud. People kept looking toward the street, wondering if this peaceful event would suddenly be interrupted. On the other side, the sheriff's deputies were visibly relaxed now, laughing with kids, sharing stories with neighbors. It seemed like the barbecue was working, bringing people together, breaking down walls. But just as things started to feel hopeful, a few cars pulled into the neighborhood. The music paused, conversations dropped, and everyone's eyes turned toward the road. Was this the HOA president? Or something else entirely? The moment felt frozen, and the question on everyone's mind was the same: what was about to happen next? As those cars rolled in, everyone's eyes were glued to the street, hearts pounding a little faster. But instead of the HOA president stepping out, it was a small group of neighbors, some we'd never really seen get involved before. They looked serious, almost confrontational, carrying flyers and holding phones like they'd already called someone. Suddenly, the quiet excitement shifted into something much heavier. These neighbors weren't just upset about the barbecue. They claimed the whole event was breaking HOA rules and threatened to report the gathering to the board. It felt like the ground was shifting beneath us. The barbecue, which started as a simple way to connect with the sheriff's office, was now sparking a deeper divide within the community. The tension wasn't just about grilling anymore. It was about control, trust, and how far people were willing to go for their neighborhood's spirit. Some people tried to calm the situation, reminding everyone that this was supposed to be about unity, but the voices of anger and frustration grew louder. At the same time, the sheriff's deputies stood quietly on the sidelines, sensing the rising conflict, but unsure how to step in without making things worse. The question hung in the air: would this barbecue bring us closer or push us further apart? And just when it seemed like the night couldn't get more intense, a text alert buzzed through a few phones, sending a new wave of shock through the crowd. Something about a meeting that no one expected was about to happen, and it might change everything. The tension was thick as the crowd waited, eyes flicking between the neighbors holding flyers and the sheriff's deputies who stood calmly but alert. Just when it seemed like things might spiral out of control, the HOA president finally appeared, quiet but firm. Instead of shutting down the barbecue on the spot, they surprised everyone by asking to speak. The crowd hushed instantly, curious and tense. The president admitted that the grilling ban had been poorly communicated and agreed that the community spirit was more important than rigid rules. They even thanked the sheriff's office for stepping in and helping bring people together. It was a moment of unexpected understanding, and for a while it seemed like the conflict might finally be resolving. People relaxed, laughter started to return, and the smell of barbecue filled the air again, this time without the heavy weight of disagreement. But just as the evening seemed to settle, one of the deputies pulled the president aside for a quiet conversation. After a few minutes, the president turned back with a serious look and announced a new plan: an official neighborhood block party sponsored by the sheriff's office and the HOA, but with strict guidelines everyone had to follow. It was a peace offering, but also a reminder that the rules weren't disappearing, they were just evolving. As people began to pack up, whispers started about whether this was truly the end or just the beginning of a new chapter. The barbecue had brought them together, but the real test: How the neighborhood would handle these changes was still ahead. And somewhere in the back of everyone's mind, a question lingered. Would the next barbecue feel as free as this one? In the days that followed, the neighborhood started to feel a little different, more open, more connected. The HOA president's decision to work with the sheriff's office and create a sponsored block party showed that rules don't have to be walls. They can be bridges. It wasn't perfect, and not everyone agreed with every new guideline. But the important thing was that conversations had started. Neighbors who hadn't spoken in years began to chat over fences and front porches. The barbecue had done more than just feed people. It sparked a sense of community that had been missing. Looking back, the grilling ban felt less like a restriction and more like a catalyst for change. It challenged everyone to rethink how we come together, how we listen, and how we stand up for what matters. Hosting the barbecue at the sheriff's office was a bold move that turned frustration into friendship and reminded us that sometimes the best way forward is to invite others in, especially those who keep us safe. So, if you ever face a rule that feels unfair or a challenge that seems impossible, remember this story. Sometimes, pushing back with kindness, creativity, and a little teamwork can change everything. And who knows? Your next neighborhood barbecue might just be the start of something amazing.